I will go for a dance story, hopefully with pictures. Yeah. I guess that by seeing this picture, you will immediately understand that I will be talking about science. I will talk about the widespread and persisting belief that public research does necessarily and always work in the general interest. Moreover, many people passionately defend rational thinking. Like using a mechanical duck to explain something complex as life, positive science is breaking up living organisms into independent pieces, as if it were a Lego set that you can break down and build up again and again. Complex characteristics of life are reduced to simple relations between pieces. So the predominance of such reductionist and Western viewpoints to explain life and society is problematic, and not only within academic discussions, as it has been shown in philosophy of science book like the one you see here. No, since we were kids, we are trained to look at the world by tearing it apart in pieces, isolated pieces, and so we are trained to give more values and truth to certain worldviews than others. In Belgium, we have been confronted recently with an attempt to enforce such a reductionist worldview by the means of a field experiment. What started with planting genetically modified potatoes on an experimental field became a truly public controversy about science. Through the use of science, the field was a means to test society, its acceptance to GMOs. So citizens reacted by publicly ripping out a number of potatoes and highlight the negative effects of the introduction of GMOs. The biotech scientists, they felt insulted. And in the name of academic freedom, they defended their practice as if it existed independent from society. What is ignored is how the reductionist scientific paradigm they embrace is a crucial factor in sustaining today's privatized knowledge economy. The government felt insulted as well. The Flemish Prime Minister immediately went to visit the potato field and announced that the activist would be prosecuted for criminal gang, and so it happened. Bart Staes, the one and only politicians that publicly spoke about civil disobedience instead of violence, get politically lynched. The University of Leuven also actively contributed to the polemic by firing me. In their eyes, my role as one of the spokespersons of the activists was seen as a public defense of violence against science. Biotech scientists, politicians, and private sectors here all defend a future based on an industrial agriculture. This is the one here. A neoliberal EU policy, and eagerly followed in Flanders, leads to the investment of public and private research money to foster productivism and competitivity of the agro-industrial model. The political and economic interests behind the potato experiment are too big to let the experiment fail. So the experiment was set up as a tool to dissolve public possible hesitations towards the introduction of GMOs in agriculture. So even without having started the research, a promotion campaign did already publicize the potato of the future. The science-industrial complex here seeks to create trust where people may have doubts. We are taught to believe scientists and to rely on them for the one and only truth. The image of objectivity of the scientist is used to convince people and to legitimize the persistence of a destructive agro model. Now, when the shit hits the fan, the biotech sector opens its doors for journalists as part of a strategy to dissolve inconvenient truths about negative consequences of the agro-industry. Through their lies and promises, they encourage people to make abstraction from facts, such as having our entire food chain controlled by less than 10 companies worldwide. Talking about violence against science and portraying activists as criminals is another strategy to make sure that people don't hesitate in front of these inconvenient truths. In this way, real structural violence, such as the worldwide expropriation of farmers, is dissolved. In this narrative, scientists, they appear as victims of violence, a strategy that works perfect to hide the true victims of the violence of the agro-industry, such as the public health or the farmers or biodiversity. And yet, many people, they start to doubt when seeing the facts of putting potatoes behind the fence with private security and the accusation of activists as criminal gang. Why would the government and science react so harshly? Why are people that criticize the impossibility of an open dialogue about GMOs systematically silenced? Luckily, the university is not a homogeneous block, and concerned scientists raise their voice for another science is possible. When seeing how universities today participate in the process of silencing dissident voices and in the imposition of a worldview based on an agro-industrial future, so the potato case reveals a larger trend of dependency of universities on corporate interests and leads people to bring up questions about the type of research that is carried out and the way universities function today. One of the consequences of bringing in market mechanisms and competition in university is their increased orientation towards short-term results. Return on investment becomes a guiding principle in research and jeopardizes on quality criteria, such as public health, social and ecological matters. In many cases, warnings that something is going wrong have been suppressed or ignored. So the very condition of reliability of science is at stake here. In the wake of the potato battle, researchers and others discuss now the conditions of knowledge production. In analogy with slow food, the concept of slow science is used to express resistance against the competitive, benchmarked and short-term oriented knowledge production. So slow science is about the quality of research. And listening carefully and trying to understand the organisms and mechanisms behind controversies, we may see the cracks open through civil actions such as ripping out potatoes, and cultivate these cracks as new spaces of collective learning from which something fresh and inspiring may sprout.